Okay, for this portion, we will be discussing the obligations and rights of the vendee. Okay, according to Article 1582, the following are the obligations of the vendee: to accept the delivery, to pay the price of the things sold. Okay, so the vendee is also the buyer. So the buyer, whenever the seller delivers, okay, he has the obligation to accept the delivery and, of course, to pay the price for that thing which was sold to him. Okay, let us talk about the delivery. Where should the delivery be made? Of course, at the place agreed upon by the parties. That is where delivery should be made. If there is none, then the delivery shall be made wherever the party may be at the perfection of the contract. Okay, so if the buyer and the seller did not agree on the place of delivery, it will be presumed that it will be wherever the property is located at the time of the meeting of the minds. It follows that the vendee should accept the delivery in either place number 1 or place number 2. So how is the acceptance of the delivery made by the vendee or the buyer? Number 1, by express acceptance. Of course, express acceptance is when the buyer says to the seller or intimates to the seller that he has accepted the goods. So expression. Implied acceptance may also be made when the buyer upon receiving the delivery does any acts of ownership over the goods. Or impliedly, he is keeping the goods as the new owner, and because of that, he is deemed to have accepted the delivery. Or when after a lapse of reasonable time, the buyer retains the goods. Hindi niya sinauli without intimating or without telling the seller that he has rejected them. So upon delivery, the buyer takes possession of the goods and keeps it for a long period of time without saying to the seller that he has rejected them. And in that case, he is considered to have accepted the delivery impliedly. Okay, so some rules on acceptance of delivery. Okay, unless otherwise agreed by the parties, the buyer of goods is not bound to accept delivery by installments. Okay, so no installment delivery if it is not agreed. Acceptance of the goods by the buyer shall not discharge the seller from liability in damages or other legal remedy for breach of warranty. Okay, so when the buyer accepts the delivery, it does not mean that he is waiving any damages or breach of warranty that he may discover or may brought against the seller. Okay, the acceptance of the buyer does not free the seller from any liability for damages or breach of warranty. The buyer should give notice to the seller for breach of warranty within a reasonable time after he knows it or should have known it. Otherwise, the seller shall not be liable therefore. Okay, this means that if you are a buyer or a vendee, you should immediately look for breaches of warranty because time is running. Okay, within a reasonable time, you should have already uh, inspected the goods, and if you have seen any breach of warranty, whether express warranty or implied warranty, you must immediately inform the seller. Otherwise, okay, you are deemed to have waived any claim to breaches of warranty. So, ang sabi dito, within a reasonable time. Another rule, unless otherwise agreed, where the buyer refuses to accept the goods, he is not bound to return them to the seller. It is sufficient that he notifies the seller that he refuses to accept them. So, if there is no agreement, kung ibalik ba ni seller to the buyer to the seller, upon non-acceptance, okay, it is presumed that the buyer is not obliged or bound to return the goods. Okay, he only is required to notify the seller that he is refusing to accept the delivery. So yung nag-deliver, yung carrier, okay, yun siya ang bound to return, not the buyer. Okay, after accepting delivery, okay, the buyer or the vendee should pay, has the obligation to pay the goods. So where and when should he pay? Number one, at the time and place agreed upon by the parties, of course. Number two, if there is no agreement, then at the time and place of delivery. Okay, if there is no agreement as the time as the place, at the time of place and delivery, okay, pagka-accept niya ng delivery, he must pay. Okay, unless otherwise there are agreement for a future payment or prepayment, bahala na sila. So what are the rights of the vendee? Kanina obligations, this time is the rights. Okay. So the vendee has the right to examine the goods, of course. Okay. The vendor, according to Article 1584, the vendor must give the vendee a reasonable opportunity of examining the goods for the purpose of ascertaining whether they are in conformity with the contract. Of course, that's the right of the vendee to examine the goods before he accept and pay for them. And the second right of the vendee is the right to suspend payment under Article 1590. The vendee has the right to suspend payment if he is disturbed in the possession or ownership of the thing. So after accepting the thing, okay, there is a disturbance in the possession or ownership of the vendee. Ibig sabihin, someone is claiming the thing from the vendor. So he is disturbed with the possession or ownership. In that case, if the vendee has not yet paid, he has the right to suspend payment. He is justified from not paying until such time that the vendor will make ways or find ways to stop the disturbance. Letter B, even if it is just reasonable fear, grounds to fear of such disturbance by vindicatory action, or ibig sabihin there is a case filed in court for the to get the thing from the buyer, or a foreclosure of the mortgage, is also the vendee is also has the right to suspend payment. So that is all for the rights and obligations of the vendee.